I was shimming out onto the skinny branches here, and either people were going to get it or they weren't. And I knew it was a risk. So my family was somewhat obligated to like what I had done. So then I branched out a little further and showed some friends and things, and they were responding well. And that's when I took the leap of faith to publish it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Lux Media Studios. Hello and welcome. This is Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Every week I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. The show is now so popular you can see it or watch it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, YouTube, Spotify, and probably anything you can name or anything you're using right now. To make it easy for you, I'm putting all the shows in one place. You can go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com and you can binge. You can also sign up to be alerted whenever there's a new episode. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. People ask me about coaching all the time. I started my own coaching program 20 years ago. It's been tested, it's been proven, it's trademarked. Find out what it's all about. No charge, no obligation. Go to miraclescoaching.com, miraclescoaching.com. My latest program for the moment is mentaltimetravelsystem.com. And you're no doubt curious. So go to mentaltimetravelsystem.com, but after the show. My latest book for the moment, because I've written 90 and I have new books coming out, including one in the summer of 2024. The latest book is called Unexpected Kindness, and you can get it in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, audio. Go to Amazon or go to unexpectedkindnessbook.com. And now I want to change direction a little bit. I said that every week I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. But this time, I think instead of helping you be happier, we should reverse it and help you be more miserable. I actually don't feel so great today. Woke up with a headache and a cold and the shivers, and I never take prescriptions, never take medicine, but I had to take something to alleviate this. And so I might slur my words like I think I just did. And I'm already feeling miserable, which is so timely because my guest is an expert on misery. He's a card-carrying member of the Miserati. Let me tell you who he is. Ron Mileti is a nationally award-winning writer and an international life coach and business trainer, formerly with Tony Robbins. No doubt that's where the misery began. He's been helping people around the world get what they want from life. Ron has led thousands of coaching sessions with people all over the world, from Switzerland to Saudi Arabia to USA to Bermuda to Colombia, from 18 to 80 years old, from truck drivers to CEOs to TV celebrities. Oh my goodness, the list just goes on. Ron's mission is to help people do what they thought was impossible. And you know, I'm on board with that. He has been involved in self-help and transformational programs for most of his life. He read his first self-help book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, when he was just 12 years old, which means he beat me. I think I read it when I was 16, which is why he had a head start on me. Later, Ron read more books and listened to audio programs from authors like Wayne Dyer, Norman Vincent Peale, and others, and participated in live events and seminars from Landmark Worldwide and more. Apparently, all of this helped him become miserable because he's written this book that I stumbled across, loved so much, I bought copies for friends, and I reached out to Ron Mileti and asked him if he'd be a guest. The book is Miserable You. Miserable You. And if you're not miserable enough, here's your chance. It's a handy guide to unhappiness you're already following. Ron, thanks for being miserable.
Dr. Joe, thanks for having me on the show today. I am honored. And I'm such a fan. It's such a thrill to be here today.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, one of the things I love about your book is the sense of humor in it. we can look at this from a number of different angles. And I do want to talk about a couple of the different angles because on one level, it's almost reverse psychology. On
Mhm.
another level, it's paradox therapy. On another level, it's stand-up comedy all by itself. And one of the things that intrigued me is that I believe you had a Facebook sponsored ad that said, when you read this, you will laugh so hard, milk will come out of your nose.
Milk and negative thoughts will come out of
Milk and negative
yes.
thoughts will come out your nose. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember thinking, I haven't laughed that hard in 70 years. I want to laugh that hard.
And you're
So,
only 50 years old, which is amazing. Right?
so I had to go get your book. Anyway, I mean, look at your roster of success. Tony Robbins going around the world, celebrities you worked with, 18 to 80 years old, landmark. I know all of this,
Yeah.
these people, these organizations and everything, but somehow you found that there was something missing. How did you come across the whole misery angle?
Yeah. So you're right. So being exposed to all those different self-help and transformational books and programs, authors and speakers, right? Including
Yeah.
you, right? Like I'm a huge fan of yours and
Oh,
first got exposed to you in The Secret, right? Like a classic and an amazing work. And so there's been so much done already in the genre, right? You
mhm.
yourself, 90 books. Come on, Dr. Joe, leave some for us. Come on. So I had to ask myself what hasn't been done. So it started with a powerful question, like what would be new and unique, different? How do I flip this genre on its head? And so I asked myself that, and I came up with, instead of coaching people on how to be more happy, I'll coach them on how to be more miserable, right? By bringing that to light, people can then become more self-aware of what they're contributing to their misery, their thoughts, their actions, right? And
Mhm.
by becoming more aware of it, they have some distance from it. They're out of the thought. They're at a distance now at arm's length. And then they have some leverage over it, right? They have a choice in the matter, right? They can say, gosh, that thing I've been thinking about, my boss, maybe I can think differently, or my spouse, or whatever else is going on in their life that's making them miserable, right?
Was
So
this
that's where
easy?
the thought came from.
I love it. Did you share it with anybody? Because I'm curious. Sometimes wild ideas show up, and the person who's receiving the idea is dismissing it because it seemed like this is too wild, or they get excited about it, but then they share it with somebody and they go, "You're going to write a book about misery? Nobody wants to be miserable." So, what was the reaction when you went out and said, or you told your mastermind, or you told friends, or maybe you didn't tell anybody? I don't know.
Oh, I did. I cornered my family, my wife, my two daughters, and they were my focus group over the last year and a half or so. And so I knew that this had to be hysterical, right? So one thing that I was involved with is being trained as a comedy writer and
Mhm.
also as a stand-up comic. Now I've never done either as a professional, but it was something that I was interested in. And so went through some training with an organization called Laughing Buddha in New York City. And
Oh,
so I wanted equal parts uh, comedy and equal parts inspiration. And it had to be in equal parts. Otherwise, it would slide into either just being a silly, slapstick kind of a book, or it would be just yet another self-help book and wouldn't be distinct. But I was as nervous as you were, right? Like I knew I was shimming out onto the skinny branches here, and either people were going to get it or they weren't, and I knew it was a risk. So my family was somewhat obligated to like what I had done. So then I branched out a little further and showed some friends and things, and they were responding well. And that's when I took the leap of faith to publish it. And since then, gotten a lot of great responses on Amazon. It's a 4.9 out of 5 stars,
yeah,
and
yeah.
people seem to get the joke. They point out that it's equally funny and yet gives them a bonk on the head that they need to take their life in the direction they want to take it.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. I love the humor and I love the wisdom that it's in there. And it looks like you had fun writing it. And as a writer, I have to always ask, was it an easy thing to write? Did you struggle with it? You know, the old Hemingway thing, writers sit at the typewriter and bleed. Did you bleed? Did you laugh? What was it like for you?
Yeah. So the way I approached it was I first created an outline, and the outline was based on me asking myself, what are the common subject matters you see in self-help books? And then what's the opposite, right? Like, because we're talking about how to make people miserable. So we have, chapter titles like "Take, Don't Give," or
Yes.
"Belief Life Has Meaning with a capital M," or "Interpret Things the Worst Way Possible." Right? So they're the opposite of what you would normally think. So outline came first, so I was really clear where I was going. Like I had a roadmap, and
Mhm.
then I literally just reserved certain days and times. For me, it was Saturday and Sunday morning before the family was up, before there was any demands on me. I would just reserve that time and write for a few hours every week, writing, drafting a chapter, reviewing a previous chapter, and then just keeping that going over the course of a year. Drafted the entire book and then went back through it again, of course, as you know, to
Yeah.
refine and things like that. So
Yeah.
I would say that I never felt writer's block,
Mm.
and at times I was wondering if I was making sense, if this was getting across the ideas I want, was I being funny or not? So there was always that that little hint of self doubt. But like you mentioned, I really enjoyed the process. It was a fun book to write.
And how long did it take you? Because I heard there was a long outline. There was a year of working on weekends. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to write the whole thing?
Yeah, it took 12 months,
Wow.
exactly, plus some refining a few months after that, but basically the course of a year.
Wow. And are the reviews, well, you mentioned the 4.9 reviews on Amazon, and you caught me because I had created a video review of your book. I didn't
Yes.
know you. We had never met. I didn't know anything about the book, didn't know anything about your background, but I loved the book. And so I just spontaneously, authentically made this video that I hoped had a little bit of humor in it because
Uh-huh.
I told people I didn't think they were unhappy enough.
Right.
I said, to help you go the extra mile and win the gold and get the misery trophy, go
Yes.
read Miserable You. So the other thing I'm curious about, we have to go back a little bit, and usually I start there, but I'm on medication. I don't know where I'm at. Uh, and that is, you said you read Think and Grow Rich when you were 12. I don't
Yes.
know too many people that read Think and Grow Rich when they're 12 years old. How in the world did that end up in your hands? Why weren't you reading whatever, a sports magazine or something at that point?
Right. Well, there was comic books too, but so I like to say to people, if you knew my family, you'd understand why, and that's true of probably many people, right? We all have crazy families that we have to deal with, and so at a young age, I knew that there were some things that I didn't love what I was seeing in the family, and there was
Mm.
a goal of trying to go farther in life, and so I started looking for answers. And one of the first places I looked was in a self-help book, and Think and Grow Rich, and it's a classic for a reason. If anyone that's watching hasn't read that, boy, I would encourage it. It's an amazing book, and it got me hooked. Right from there, it just became more and more. I think at age 13, then I was reading, Wayne Dyer and people like that. And then
Wow.
off I went. Yeah. Erroneous Zones. Good,
Yeah.
good,
That
good,
was
good,
either
good
his
stuff
first
for,
book or one of the first books. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, I need to know if you snapped to what Napoleon Hill was teaching, because you're 12 years old reading Think and Grow Rich. Did you get a
Mhm.
little wealthy? Did you get some money coming in? Was it just a good read, or did you grasp some of the concepts and implement them?
So I can say that for sure, what I was taking away from that book was more than just the aspiration for wealth. And though that was certainly part of what I wanted someday, at that age, mostly what I was looking for was the idea of manifesting what you
Oh,
dream of, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I gotta share this story, Dr. Joe. So this is an absolutely 1,000% true story. I did the math; it was 1,000% true. So just a few weeks ago, so I have a coach, right? I'm a coach to other people, and coaches have coaches, right? Because
Mhm.
we all can benefit from that outside perspective and that accountability. So I have a coach. And my coach was saying, Ron, if you want to take this book to the next level and have it be successful, yeah, there's some mechanical things to do, right? And market it and all that. And you need to make space in your mind and your heart for miracles, for magic to happen, like something unexpected. And a week later, I saw that you had posted that review of the book, and I reached out to thank you. And your response to that was, "Hey, do you want to be on my TV show?" So I got to tell you, the power of manifesting, of just sending that wish out to the universe, God, karma, whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
I can say it absolutely works. In fact, the day you invited me to be on the show, I also got invited to be on a radio show in New York City. And neither of those things were anything that I was actively working on. They just came in out of the blue.
Yeah. You put it out there, and then it started to take root, and then it blossomed, and now you get the fruits of it. I
Yeah,
love the story, and I'm glad to be part of it, especially since there's a sign behind me that says expect miracles. And I
right.
wrote a book called The Miracle, and it's very much my focus and my
Mhm.
soapbox.
Absolutely.
So was your parents into this self-help? Because if you're reading Think and Grow Rich at the age of 12, was it on the shelf in the house, or did you go to the library?
No, no, not at all. I can honestly
That's a
say, I
strong answer.
think, yeah, I mean, the short answer is heck no. And yeah, they were just not interested in things like that. And I can honestly say I don't remember where I first got the idea. I probably was in a what was then, Walden Books, right? Like back when that was the thing. And I think I was probably looking for a comic book or something. I was into Batman at the time, right?
Right.
And I think I may have saw it on a shelf and said, "Hey, mom," right? It was something that just grabbed my attention. So it wasn't like an adult suggested it or anything like that. It was like perhaps it showed up because I was ready for the lesson that it
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel inspired to ask you a coaching question,
Yeah, absolutely. I'd
and
be
that
happy to
is,
coach you.
I have my copy of Think and Grow Rich, a cheap paperback from, I think, 1976. It probably cost me a dime. It was a beat up
Copy.
paperback. And I remember reading it. And I remember being broke before it and being broke after it.
Mm.
And I then went into homelessness, and
Mhm.
then I was into poverty for 10 years. And it's like, what did I miss in the book? And so this is I wasn't thinking that I would ask this question, but you being an experienced coach, I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who can relate to. I've read self-help books, like Dr. Joe just said, and nothing happened.
Mm.
What's missing? What's missing when
Well,
somebody reads?
I think it's exactly what you're alluding to, Dr. Joe. So, how are you doing today financially? Doing all
Oh,
right, right?
yeah, I'm doing great.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah,
you got your payoff, you got the result. It just didn't happen immediately, right? So sometimes we just have to be patient and in the fact that that seed that was planted, it's growing and it's going to push through the soil and it's going to grow and blossom, but it might not be as quick as we would like it to be. I
yeah,
like to tell people that I'm a 20-year overnight success, right? I say that to people openly, right?
right.
I've, along with being an author, I've also, and a coach, I've also started my own company, a digital marketing company. And at first it was just me and an iMac in a kitchen in Cleveland, Ohio when I founded it. And I grew it to a team of, over 20 people and
Wow.
clients all over the country and some really notable brands that we worked with. And so, but that didn't happen immediately. It didn't even happen over the first 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
It happened eventually about year 4 or 5, it started to take off. And then from there, really went up. And so, today, like I've been a success. I'm now writing and coaching because I want to make a difference in the world,
Yeah.
not because I'm looking for it as as an income necessarily.
Hmm.
And this is my way of giving back. But for those who are in a place where you're wondering when it's going to happen, uh, that's the time most of all to have that faith, right? To
Hmm.
put it out to the universe. Like, yeah, it hasn't shown up yet, but I believe it's going to happen. And that does take some work, right? Like there's going to be the yeah buts bouncing around in your head. Yeah, but what about this and that? I'm sure, you did, and I certainly did as well. And at some point, we all can just have that discipline of belief. I like to look at it. It's success is being able to move from no result to no result with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yeah. I think Winston Churchill had a variation of that quote, going from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm,
Yeah.
which is great. Now, my job here with this show is to find interesting guests, find out their stories. I get to promote you, get to promote your book, but I always have an intention to help people who are struggling. And so I'm thinking back, excuse me, I'm thinking back to when I was homeless or in poverty. And if somebody had said, you just have to have faith and you just have to keep your thing, and over time it'll grow and you'll cash in. Man, I would go berserk. It was like, I need a better answer than that. It is, and I'm not dismissing what you just said, because I say the same thing. And I am a 30-year overnight success. None of this has happened in a snap.
Right.
There certainly were breaks, but the breaks came from me doing years of daily work.
Yeah.
So what I'm probing for is there some sort of insight, some sort of story? And it could just be the reverse psychology of thinking about what makes you really miserable, and then start focusing on that. Because when you do, you might have the aha that, wait a minute, if I shift that, I won't be so miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple things come to mind. For sure, many people are going through life, including myself at times, right? Like we're all human beings. But we all have the ability to contribute to our suffering, to our misery, right? There are certain thoughts or actions we may take, sloppy thinking that adds to our misery. And so the point of the book, right? So, miserable you, right? It's notice the subhead, a handy guide on happiness that you're already following,
Right.
Meaning that we're already doing these things, right? We're already creating stories in our mind, interpreting the world in a certain way that adds to our misery, right? There's infinite amounts of good in the world and infinite amounts of bad. And what are we going to focus on? Where are we going to bring our focus? And so a lot of what Miserable You is about, the book is a pattern interrupt, right? It's through the humor, it's a pattern interrupt, because the humor will lift your spirits if you're not feeling up at the time. But then also that, reverse psychology that you talk about, it's a pattern interrupt, right? It's having people that are in that mindset and their mental train is going down that track every day. It's like throwing a railroad tie across the tracks and just boom, like you just cannot not be aware of that you're contributing to those thoughts once you've read this book, right? Like it's forevermore going to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that to myself again. I got to stop doing that. That's why the cat on the cover, right? Like he's bonking himself on the head, because that's what we do sometimes to ourselves. The other thing that comes to mind from your question is one thing that was said to me when I was younger, probably during that stage I was trying to build my business, was whenever you're not getting the result you want in life, ask yourself, where are you not saying yes? It's a really simple but powerful idea. You're not saying yes. Are you not saying yes to taking on that client that maybe isn't the ideal client, but they're going to help fund your business? Are you not saying yes to the late night that might have the work get done that causes the breakthrough in your income? Or are you not willing to do certain things because it's below you, right? Those kinds of things. Like, so if you ask yourself, where are you not saying yes? You usually can come to some conclusions about where you can up your game, step up, level up, and perhaps start moving more quickly towards the results you want in life.
Believing Before Seeing, a new bestseller by Candace Barr. Order your copy today.
That is a $1 million tip. thank you so much for saying
Well,
that. Where are you not saying yes? Oh, that is good.
if that's $1 million tip, can I give you the address to send the check?
Well, I think our viewers should be doing that here. The other thing is when they do say yes, or the reason they don't say yes is because of fear. So in other words, if they're not saying yes and you've got them, you prodded them a little bit, now they're considering, where am I not saying yes? Oh yeah, I needed to make that phone call or do such and such. And they're resisting it
Yeah.
because of fear, because of doubt, because of insecurity, because of the uncertainty of the future.
Yeah.
What's your $1 million tip there? I love $1 million tips. So you've only given
All
us
right.
one. I need a few more.
All right. Here's two that are together. So
good.
500,000 each. Right.
Okay.
So we're all going around with these common fears, right? We have these common fears that many fears can come down to these two. We're afraid we're not good enough, right? We're often afraid that we're not good enough. And there's a million variations on that, like different ways we might language it in our mind or out loud. We might say, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not smart enough or creative enough, or I don't have enough experience, but those are really just variations. I'm not good enough. So we're all afraid of that. We're all walking around with that thought in our mind in some way. I mean, gosh, even being on this show today, I'm like, gosh, I've never been on this show before. I wonder how this is going to go. And like, yeah, like, because I'm a human being, right? We all have it. It's part of the hardware, in my opinion. It's not going to go anywhere. We can just start noticing it. So we have some leverage over it. By noticing it, we are now at a distance and we can have some say in the matter, interpret things differently. And then the other fear that we're going around with is that we're not going to be loved or appreciated, right? So we're going around with this feeling that we're not good enough. And because of that, we're not going to be loved or appreciated. And again, there's a million variations on that. There's different ways that people might language that depending on the context. Like at work, you don't say, gosh, my boss doesn't love me. You might say, gosh, this quarter, I don't know if I'm going to hit our goals and our KPIs. And so I may not be promoted into that new position, right? I'm not good enough and I'm not loved. So in pretty much every context of our life, we can notice these kinds of fears coming up.
Yeah.
And when we notice them, we can have say in the matter on how we can interpret the situation differently, right? Like, so today, right? Like being on TV, being on your show, yeah, it's just natural, right? Oh my gosh, I hope I do okay. If I don't drool, So, and then there's stopping, pausing, slowing down your thoughts. This is what I did. And I primed myself before the call. I got myself in a powerful mental state. And now here we are talking like we're old buddies, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you're doing fantastic and you are loved.
Thank
and
you.
A lot of what we're talking about here doesn't have the humor of miserable you. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell me, what are your favorite parts in the book? Were there times when you wrote it and you just went, oh, that's good, and you started laughing, and there's nobody else in the room, and you're just like, oh, that was funny.
Yeah, there's definitely some funny moments, and I did try to have equal parts humor and self-help or inspiration, and with the timing that you would have of like a sitcom, right? So like every paragraph typically has one or two or more jokes in it, right? So that it's coming at you the entire time. And some of my favorite moments are, first of all, there's some like how-to tips or activities, right? And they're very sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek, like the 7-day anti-gratitude challenge. Like you've been complaining about your life for years, and here's your chance to spend 7 days really getting into the muck, decide exactly what it is you hate about your life, what's no good, no bueno, and it guides you through specific activities to do that 7 days. Now, do I really mean people should do that? Of course not. It's meant to be a joke. And as you go through the tips for those 7 days, you start realizing, oh my gosh, I'm doing a lot of these things myself already, right? Yeah. So that's I think a good example. One of my favorite passages, I'm going to shamelessly just read this to you. So this is in the chapter about appreciate nothing, right? So,
Yes. I remember that. See, I'm already laughing. I remember.
right? Because if
Appreciate
you want to be
nothing.
miserable, appreciate nothing, have no gratitude, right? So in that chapter or lesson, there's this passage which is one of my favorites. So to be miserable, ignore the fact that in this galaxy swirling with seemingly random atoms and molecules, the fact that you exist, that any life exists, is an improbability and thus an absolute miracle. Ignore that beyond any likelihood, dumb matter became life, then became conscious, then evolved to the point of thinking, understanding, loving, striving, and creating. Sure, this realization can take your breath away as you stare into the face of God, the universe, or karma, but this is all just a distraction. Discipline. Forget about that miracle you are. Instead, ask, why do I have this muffin top? I love that. I don't know. Hopefully, everybody else finds that hysterical because, man, we're human beings. We go around like
Yeah.
we're focused on our little gut when the fact that we even exist at all is an absolute miracle, right?
And it'll all be over pretty darn soon. Oh, by the way, I just opened it up and it says, I lived in Cleveland for most of my young life. Are you a Buckeye? Were you born and raised in Ohio?
Yeah. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah.
I was born and raised in Niles.
Oh,
Over
I'm
by
sorry.
Yes, over by Youngstown, and went to Kent State University, and
Oh, my wife went to Kent State.
yeah, 72 to 76. Right after that, went downhill. I'm just, why did today suck so bad? Oh, that reminds me. Some of the things, and this might be the chapter, you talk about the questions we ask. And I think that is a good thing to talk about. And I'd like to hear your comments. It's obviously in the book, and I want everybody to go get the book. But questions can lead us down the sewers of life, or questions can lead us to the answers we're looking for and new solutions and new creativity and new positivity. So, how do you address this whole question business?
Yeah. So the idea is that we all have this little voice in our head that's constantly has a dialogue going on, right? So like oftentimes our words, our language are external, right? Like we're talking here today. But then also there's this dialogue going on in our mind. And it's been going on since we were about 2 years old, right? Like human beings live in language. And that language has a huge effect on how we interpret the world. So from a very young age, we're not just sensing the world with our five senses, our sight or sound or, touch and taste, but instead we're interpreting the world through language. And it happens almost immediately, right? Like something happens and we're applying language to it almost immediately. And so that language has a big impact on how we see the world. So like just as a simplistic example, let's say I'm driving down the highway, somebody changes lanes, almost hits my car. I can say to them or say to myself in my car, oh my gosh, you jerk, you idiot. Where'd you learn how to drive? Right. And then I'm enraged.
Yeah.
That person over there doesn't have any effect by my words, but I do. I just ruined my day. Or I can say, oh my gosh, that guy's in such a hurry. Maybe he's having an emergency. I better get out of his way. Different words, different interpretation. So like that chapter on ask bad questions, right?
Yeah.
So it's lesson 8, ask bad questions. Questions are an important part of our use of language, right? Because it's what engages our mind. And when we ask bad questions, we get bad answers. Our mind will come up with bad answers. So like, for instance, let's say I ask myself something like, oh my gosh, why am I such an idiot? Well, my brain's going to come up with an answer to that question. And it's going to say, well, it's because, you're just born that way. It's just who you are or whatever it might come up with, right? So to be miserable, ask bad questions like that. And to be happy, gosh, catch yourself doing that and change those questions.
That is fantastic. As I'm looking over the bio that I read earlier, I'm astonished at how much experience you have, everything from Tony Robbins there to all of these different people you've worked from the 80 to 80 and CEOs and all of that, and Landmark and all of these other things. And it makes me wonder, besides what's in your book, what do you know really works in life? if you had to distill all of this experience you've had in the coaching arena, the self-help arena, and maybe you have in the book Miserable You and just voiced it differently, but I'm
Hmm.
kind of soliciting a different answer.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a different way of answering that just to see what comes up for both of us. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, what are some things that work? Uh, for sure, one of the ways that we all can level up our level of happiness is guiding our mind to notice the good in the world and in our life versus the bad. So,
Nice.
as an example, we all can sit and think about how Putin is over there in Russia, and any moment a nuke can come over, and there goes, our city or something like that. We can focus on that all day until we're just, dripping with sweat from anxiety, right?
Right.
Or we can focus on the people that we love, and we can think about the people we love and how, gosh, we're so lucky to have them in our life and have like a heartfelt appreciation for that. And even as I say these things out loud, you might have, you, Dr. Joe, and the viewers of the show, you might have felt a little difference even just listening to that a
Yeah.
couple sentences that I'm saying.
Mhm.
And we all do that all day long. We make choices about our mental focus. There's so much good in the world, and there's so much bad in the world. And where are we going to put our focus, our energy? And we get a choice in that matter. Now, we might all have bad habits, right? So all of us are guilty at times with thinking about what we're worrying about or a problem. And then perhaps you've noticed when you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning and you're not thinking about that anymore, gosh, that problem doesn't seem so big anymore, does it? Right. So that's the magic of it, is that when we can start
Mhm.
learning from that and then doing it consciously, not just randomly, we
Mhm.
can take control. I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to achieve with Miserable You is having people realize that happiness isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create. It's a
Yeah.
choice we make on a moment to moment basis. And so when we find ourselves getting back into the negative thinking, the miserable thinking, that's fine. We're human beings. We're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for consistency. So we
Mm.
just take control, nudge our attention back to what we love, what's great in our life, that gratitude, that appreciation. And then as we do that, we experience life in a whole different way, right? Like today, Dr. Joe, you can sit there focusing on your cold, or you can focus on what an incredible guest you have on your show.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And I
Yeah,
say that sort of sarcastically, but you know what I'm saying.
I definitely know what you're saying. What you're saying. I'm very much a disciple of Pollyanna. I
Mm,
love Pollyanna. I love the book, and I love all the movies they made about her. And she focused on finding the good. She
mm,
didn't say there wasn't bad. She
yeah.
just said that even in the bad, there's
Mm,
good if you look for it. So
yeah.
I'm right on board with you. Now, this
Mm,
show is called Zero Limits Living, and I'm really exploring if we have any limits. Based on your experience in personal development, self help, everything you've read, from Think and Grow Rich at 12
mm.
years old to Miserable You as an author. Um, what do you think? Do we have limits? And if so, what are they?
Boy, if human beings have limits, we certainly haven't reached them yet. Maybe,
Nice.
maybe someday we'll bump up against a wall somewhere, but man, I haven't seen it yet. I've always been amazed at even with my coaching clients, right? And I'm sure you've had a similar experience with them. What amazing things they've done.
Hmm.
I've had coaching clients that uh, have turned around their lives from addiction and things like that, and completely have transformed their lives. I've had clients that have become multimillionaires and
Wow.
never went to college, right? So, and of course, like on a broader scale, gosh, the things that are happening with AI now, and with the possibilities that those can create. I mean, we're in a sense, gosh, I don't mean to get all woo woo, but if I can't do it here, where can I? But like, are we creating life? I mean, kind of, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's amazing, right? To me, the possibilities are endless. So do I think there's any limits? No, I don't. I would say the limits that people have are uh, almost exactly related to what beliefs they have about their limits, right? Like if you believe that if you're one of the fleas in a jar and you believe that lid is still there, you're going to only jump that high. But when you realize the lid is no longer there and there is no limit, you can jump as high as you want.
And you knew I was going to interview you. Did you have a question you were hoping I would ask to pull out a story you want to tell? Was there something that you really wanted to talk about? Yes, here's your chance.
That is an excellent question. Let me think about that. Was there something I was hoping you would ask about? Well, one of the things that comes to mind is, so one of the things I did in Miserable You was very consciously done. So and I'm wondering if you noticed this. So many books are written long paragraph form, page after page, right? Chapter 1,
Yeah.
text, 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 chapter 2, text, text, text. And one of the things I consciously try to do with Miserable You is break up the chapters into very scannable chunks.
Yeah.
So as you go through the book, you'll see there's call outs, there's bold text,
Yeah.
there's illustrations and large inspirational quotes and things like that.
Yeah.
So that my theory is that readers today scan. They don't read top to bottom, left to right, like maybe historically we all did. We're all busy and we're looking for little nuggets. And so I wanted to write the book and publish the book in a way that was very scannable for those that want to just grab a headline, grab a quote, look at a bullet point list, and take that with them through their day so that they can grab a little nugget. And if they choose to, they can use that nugget to make themselves miserable that day, or of course, do the opposite and use it to catch themselves when they're making themselves miserable and then do the opposite. But I'm curious, did you notice that? Like it's a little different than a lot of books out there.
I did. As an author, I'm always, I'm a bookaholic. I mean, I am buying books, reading books, devouring books, sharing books, reviewing books. It just goes on forever. It's my, what William Glasner would call a positive addiction. So yes, I go into the book and I look for a lot of different things. Everything from what am I reading this book for? What is the takeaway? Is there an entertainment? Is there an enlightening statement? I do what's called intentional reading. So when I pick up a book, I'm looking for whatever it is that brought me to that book. There's an intention. In your case, I wanted to experience milk coming out of my nose. I wanted to laugh so hard that negative thoughts and milk came out my nose. So that's why I got it. And then one of the things I noticed, and I just opened it at random, is that you have these little captions and little diagrams. This one says, you have a bright future ahead. Just quit playing with the dimmer switch. And so you could open the book and there is a morsel. And there's many throughout this, plus you had places for notes. You do have the bulleted points. So you've broken this up so it's very readable for the average person. And in fact, I wanted to get it for a couple friends of mine who have been miserable for their entire lives.
Is that right?
They don't read books. And I thought they might read this one because they don't have to read it in a traditional sense. They can go with one of your statements, jump to it, and then there's an insight. So, yeah, day 7, end your day remembering what went wrong.
Right? Like we're all guilty of this, right? Like
I know.
things happen, and as we're going to sleep, we're thinking about that meeting that went sideways or that person that cut us off in traffic, and we're like revisiting that miserable moment. Instead, we can take control of that moment and guide our mind towards what we did love from the day. What did we learn? What was fun? Where did you contribute? That sort of thing.
Is your family supportive of your humor? Are they like, would you please stop? But we've heard enough. We read the book.
I think because the book is getting such good reviews, they appreciate my humor now more than ever, right? Before it was dad jokes or whatever. And now it's like, oh my gosh, Dad's a published author and people are giving him good reviews. So
yeah, the peer reviews make a big difference. Well, listen, as we're running out of time here, do you still do coaching? Are you available if people want to work with you and get even more miserable? I
am, yeah. So if anyone is interested, I am doing one-on-one coaching, and I also will coach teams as well. So I do life and business coaching for individuals and for groups if you prefer.
Mhm.
And if anyone's interested, my coaching business is suckerpunchlife.com. Suckerpunchlife.com. Yeah,
Suckerpunchlife.com. How'd you come
yeah.
up with that name? Suckerpunchlife.com.
Because it's sarcastic and irreverent to coaching
Same
and
time.
stuff,
It's you.
right? You'll notice a theme there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we all want to just take on life, and life can deck us. Here's us fighting back, right?
This is amazing. I love talking to you. I appreciate you making time for me and everybody. I love your book, Miserable You. I think it's at miserableyou.com. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I've got my book website at miserableyou.com. It's also available on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon, search Miserable You. You'll find the book, and it's available hardback, paperback, and Kindle.
Are you going to make an audio version at some point?
The audio version is in the works. Yes, I know there's a big demand for that, and that's in the works.
As one author to another, I'm astonished at how much people want the audio over the print, because they listen when they're driving, they're walking, they're running, they're cycling, they're petting their dog, they're going for walks, it goes on. So
Yeah,
make sure you do the
absolutely.
audio version,
Absolutely.
and don't give me any misery about it. Uh, any last words before I close out?
No, I'm a real honor to be here, Dr. Joe. Gosh, really thrilled to be here. For those that are on the fence, this is a literally an $18 investment in your
Yeah.
future. So
Yeah.
I think I'm a little biased, right? It's a hysterical book, if I don't say so myself, and I think there's a lot of little nuggets of wisdom. Not from me per se, like this is all, coming through me, so to speak. And so,
Mhm.
invest in, if you're wondering about it, grab a copy. I've yet to talk to anybody who regrets it. I mean, they typically say they've gotten a lot out of it. So, really thrilled to be here and to help make a difference in other people's lives. That's why I'm here.
I appreciate it, Ron. Thank you. I've been talking to Ron Mileti, who wrote Miserable You. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. You've been watching or listening to Zero Limits Living. The show is now seen or heard on 1,000 platforms, or just go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Check out Miracles Coaching, miraclescoaching.com, mentaltimetravel.system.com, my latest book, unexpectedkindnessbook.com. I want to thank Lux Media Studios, Chris in the engineering department, Candace Barr, for making this possible. And I thank all of you for tuning in. You are the ones who are awakening. I love you. Expect miracles.